Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, this is your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get into our guest, well, first of all, everyone should recognize our guest if you're a longtime listener. Kelleen's back on the podcast for her third time, and it's been over 2 years since we last had her on. And my, how the time has flown. And, it's just insane how I'm still, I just had my 4-year anniversary last month, and yeah, how that time has really flown by. But yeah, she's on here. Yeah, just give us an update on what she's been up to since we last had her on. Obviously, as we can see, she is still working out. It's kind of hard not to notice that. But most importantly, she's back on again. Keleen, thank you so much for coming back on.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, this is a question that I ask every guest all the time, no matter how many times I hear people say, like, oh, why do you ask this question? What's the weather like today?
In my home today, it was raining like crazy, and now it's sunny. I live in a very humid, hot state. So half the time it's raining, and half the time it's sweating your face off. So it's been, I think, like a lot of people around the world, it's been a very hot summer. So we've been spending more time inside. Thank goodness I like the gym. That's a good place to be when it's super hot outside. But yeah, I can't complain. It's hot, but it's beautiful here. It's beautiful in Atlanta.
Yep, in Minnesota, we're experiencing the first time it's been 100 degrees for probably like a couple of years. Normally, every like 2 or 3 years, we'll have a few days of 100 plus, but it is like at 98 right now. And the reason I did my cardio early today is because I went outside late last night at like 9 o'clock. I had to wait because that's when it was only cool enough where I wasn't feeling like dying out there in the
Yeah.
heat. So, yep, we are dealing with that heat wave as well. But before I feel bad about just even think, because like we have Duluth right up the state, and it's 65 degrees there while it's 98 degrees because they're on Lake Superior, so it's the lake effect.
Oh, okay.
So
Wow.
I have friends up there and they gloat every time. So even talking about the weather, I just think about that and I'm getting depressed now. So we're gonna move on now. But it's been 2 years since we last had you on. What have you been up to since we last talked?
So in 2020, when all the crazy COVID stuff was happening, I had made a goal that year to compete. And I didn't know if they were even going to have shows that year. But I just kept my focus and kept my goal and found a couple of shows that said they were going to make it happen. And I competed that year and did pretty well. And then took a year off to just see what I could do to improve and make some adjustments in my physique. And now this year, I'm getting ready to compete in October. So yeah, so I've just been at it. I'm stubborn. And even though I'm in my 50s, I am still really passionate about bodybuilding, and I'm still really determined to make improvements in my physique. And also, the sport just gives me a lot of joy, and it gives me a lot of happiness. And so it feels good to be here. Even though the work is hard, it's a good place for me to be.
Well, and plus being one of the older guests, she motivates me to get off my butt and still work out. So I thank her for that at least. But what were the improvements that you were working on in your off season?
So this year, one of the things I wanted to try to do was to make some improvements in my glutes and in my hams. And I also wanted to widen out my lats. And I feel pretty good about the improvements that I've made over the last year and a half. I try, you know, the thing about social media is that you get to see a lot of beautiful bodybuilders. Um, I'm an amateur bodybuilder, so I'm not a pro, but I have a tendency to follow pros. And I think it's because I visualize certain things for myself. And I always like to look at people that are doing better than I'm doing. I want to know, I want to have kind of a visual, something that I can work towards. And so, what I try to do as a bodybuilder is have my goals, have the things that I want to reach for, and also have a very realistic place for myself. I want to offer myself an opportunity to work really, really hard, like just grind it out, but at the same time, I want a place for grace to say, if I have worked really hard and I've checked off all the boxes and this is what I get, I want to be happy about what I get. I want to be able to feel like I'm doing the very best I can and be happy with the improvements that I'm making. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Well, unfortunately, you did sign up for a sport where you're never going to be the best version of
I
yourself. It's
know.
always going to be, but I wish I could like go back in time and tell someone, I guess it's like just preparing you for the fact that like you will never, that's one thing that I struggled with as well, where it's like you reach your goals and then you're like, now what? And then it's like you keep improving, but like you're never going to be perfect. So how do you deal with that mindset? Because it's like, yeah, you are never going to be your best version. And if it is, then it's like you should probably stop competing if you think you're at your best version then.
Yeah, that's really true. So, that's an interesting question. And this is a pretty serious subject, but, and you and I talked about this before we jumped online, but um, we had a family member that passed away this year. And with that loss becomes you receive a different perspective. If you allow it, you get a different perspective. And a couple of things that became very apparent to me was that we don't live forever. We don't. And so, what I want to do is live the very best life that I can. And in order to do that, I must be happy and joyful with that time. If I make myself miserable because I never feel satisfied with what I'm doing, then what kind of a life is that? But if I can say to myself every day, I have gotten up, I have worked hard, I have done things that have made me happy, I've sacrificed, I've put in the time, and this is what I'm allowed to experience, then I'm going to thank God every day for that blessing. Every day I'm going to try and be thankful for that blessing because you never know when that day is up. You never know. And then the other thing is, why do something that brings you negativity or brings you sadness? Why do it? Why? You know what I mean? So yes,
That's
you're
what I
right.
tell. That's why I tell myself when I'm trying to convince myself not to do cardio. Why do something that brings me sadness?
But are you sad when you're done?
Yeah, maybe once or twice. I will give you that. Maybe like once or twice out of the couple hundred times I've done it. So yes, I will give you that.
So what I do with cardio is I'm like, yeah, I don't like to do it, but I really like the results, right? So the results bring me happiness. It's not always, the experience in the moment, but what are you getting from it, right? And I think that's the lesson of bodybuilding is that when you're in the gym and you're grinding it out and you're sweating it out and you're fatiguing, or when you're getting ready for the stage and you're hungry and you're starving, that's not always fun. But the end result, the rewards, the experience of stepping on a stage and knowing you have done your very, very best, that's fun. That's fun. And so, at least for me, it is. And so that's why I'm here because that brings me purpose and it brings me a lot of joy. So,
It is definitely a sport of delayed gratification, but then when you finally see those results in the last few weeks, from what I've talked to, it all becomes worthwhile. And I mean, I went to my first bodybuilding show ever like 2 weekends ago. They did it one in the Twin Cities that I went to go see, and it was just fascinating. I gotta say though, I could smell that spray tan even from the back row. That was the one thing. That was the first thing I noticed. Where I was like, okay, yeah. And then there was like there's so many pregnant women there that I was like, God, there's a 50% chance that some of these kids are going to be born Guidos, just getting that secondhand dust
yeah,
off of all this stuff. But yeah, it was a great experience, and it really opened my eyes up to a lot of things. And I mean, first of all, the one bad thing that they did was that they had a bar right at the end of the stage, and I was like, you do not have people that have never had anything good to eat for like a couple of weeks. You do not give them alcohol like right afterwards. It's not
weird.
going to end well. But yeah,
I've
well for
never
the
seen
finals they
that.
had a bar opened up. Yeah,
Oh,
it
I've never ever
it was
seen
at
that.
a casino, so that's probably
Okay.
part of it
Okay.
though. But yeah, I
I
met
don't drink, so I don't,
yeah.
I mean, I would not be like wanting that. I just want like a cookie or a cheeseburger after I'm done.
Oh, I mean, yeah,
Like
I
the
mean,
pizza.
I met like 4 or 5 guests that I've had on for the first time, and I was shocked by how short some of them were, and they were shocked by how tall I was. But that's how it is. I found that very, very funny. But I will say though, seeing some of those guys on stage did not make me feel so bad about my calves, because some of them had even worse ones than me. So I will say I feel a little bit better about that now when it when
Bodies
when it
are
comes
all
to that, at
different,
least.
aren't
Yeah,
they? Bodies
absolutely.
are, that's what's extraordinary about the human body is that, it's all different. And I think that's really the lesson too about comparing yourself is that we usually compare our weakest point to somebody's like best thing about their body, right? So if you compare your weakest asset to somebody's greatest asset, you will always lose. And bodies are completely different. I competed at a competition where they had pro figure contestants or competitors on the stage before the amateurs hit the stage. And I was like, why are we doing this? The audience is going to be so dissatisfied after the pros leave the stage. But it was really interesting. I was so grateful for that experience because it was really interesting to watch them and to see these physiques um, that were on the stage up close and see how they react, during a competition and what they do. And it was a great experience for me. And even though, I may not be able to measure up to what they're doing, I was so appreciative of seeing their work and their sacrifice and the things that they do. But you can't compare yourself to others. You have to really concentrate on your own work, on your own journey, and just concentrate on the things that you want to improve on your own physique. That's the name of the game.
I'm just gonna be completely biased and say it. How have you not won your pro card? Because I look at your finished product and like in my opinion, you should have it by now. So what's the feedback that they've been giving you?
So, I have a team of people that are helping me now, and they all believe that I can get my pro card, and I've never dreamed that big. It was never like on my radar. It was never anything that was important to me. I just liked competing. To be honest with you, the best thing about bodybuilding is being in the gym every day. Um, and I like competing, but I would just rather be in the gym every day. I don't want that taken away from me. But now that I have a team of people around me that are saying, this is possible, we should work towards this. Um, I'm starting to to kind of let my brain go there, um, and see if that's possible. So that's something that we're working on. That's something that's on our radar. So
Yeah, because I remember seeing like your physique from like 2 years ago when you compete. Like the last time I had you on, I was like, "What? How is this not happening?" And then there's a handful of guests I've had on tour. I was like, I got to call some of these judges and be like, what are you guys not seeing here?
yeah,
So, yeah, but it's
yeah,
just
that's a tricky thing about the sport, isn't it? It's very subjective, and you just don't always know why certain decisions are made on the stage. And so I just try not to make that be the biggest thing because otherwise I'll lose every time, right? And you got to just go, man, I did the work. I ate the food I was supposed to eat. I did the cardio. I did everything that I was supposed to do. I brought my best package here. That's all I can do. That's all I can do.
I've found from talking to so many competitors that each prep really is different, even if it's just minuscule things. How is this prep different from all the other ones that you've done in the past?
Oh gosh. I'm working with a new team of people. I have a really awesome nutrition coach that does things differently than I've ever done before. And it's scary to learn new stuff. It's like if you're used to something and then somebody says, well, let's try it this way, that can be a little scary. So the goal was or is to keep me fuller on the stage. Of course, to lean me down so that we have all the right striations and all the right definition.
We can
But
already see the veins in the arms already. Geez, so they already got that part down.
well, I still have a little ways to go, but But yeah, the goal is to kind of keep me a little fuller. So that's what we're trying to do. So we're trying to starve me less. Let's just say that, if that makes sense, so that I don't go in as stringy, but I go in a little fuller. So,
Hey, if anyone disagrees with the starve me less policy, I got to question their mental health and sanity there. So, hey, more power to that too. But your training too, have you mixed things up in the gym? Like you said, you were working on, fixing or bringing up some body parts. Did you just change up
yeah,
your training, or was it just
yeah, no. So my coach changed my training a little bit too, which was probably harder for me than the eating. Um, and I know, like, I just want to say, like, I don't believe in absolutes. Like, you absolutely have to do this, or everybody should be doing this. I don't, especially in the bodybuilding world, I don't believe that. I believe that you should experiment with what you think is right for you. Listen to people who know what they're talking about. Do it, examine the results, and if you're not getting the results, then do something different. But don't, and also spend a lot of time doing that thing, because if you pull out too soon, you're not going to know if you're really progressing, if you're really growing. And I think sometimes we get too impatient because we're not seeing results fast enough, and so we just pull out. So I believe in really sitting with it and making sure, is this really helping me? So one of the things that I did this year is I stopped doing a lot of supersets. um, I was getting feedback that I was maybe overtraining, and I just was wearing my body down instead of allowing it to grow and to recover. And so that's what we've been doing this year. And that was tough for my psyche, because I was so used to going into the gym and just pounding out and getting like lots of volume. Um, so it was weird for me to like do a set and then be like, wait, and then do another set. It was just like a weird vibe for me. But I'm really enjoying it. I think it's a better place for me right now. I think it's helping me right now. So,
and that's great that you found that because I mean, I am still searching for some of those answers myself too. So
yeah,
it's just a lot of trial and error then until you finally, find out what works best. And I mean, you honestly chose a good year to take off last year because last year was, I think, such a watershed year where there was so much that happened in the sport with, I mean,
yeah.
there was a lot of deaths and there was a lot of tragic things. And what was that like watching that as an outsider who was not an outsider, but just as someone who wasn't competing and, able to see it from the outside point of view? What was that like? And what was your thoughts on that? Because I think it was kind of like a watershed year where a lot of people just finally realized that like, hey, it's bodybuilding. It can be a dangerous sport if you do. I mean, if you have it certain ways, and I think it really helped shed a lot of light to a lot of people that might not have been that familiar with the sport.
Yeah. It's always hard to see people that you admire, that you follow, that you respect, suddenly leave this earth. And it's that's the way it is in life anywhere. Like I said before, losing a nephew that was just 16, that's a shock, you know. Um, but at the same time, I think that if you look at that experience and you say, what is it that I need to learn from this experience? What is it that I can take with me so that I can be a better athlete, so that I can show respect to this field? Any good positive thing that you can take with you, because the people that have left, that's what they would want. They would want us to look at our lives and determine how we can be better and how we can live better. But it is very hard to see the losses of people that have been big figures in this world. That's really hard, and my heart goes out to their loved ones, to their families. That's really tough to lose somebody like that. Really tough.
Yeah, I mean, there was a handful of them that I was aware of, and then just seeing that it was, yeah, it was definitely a different experience just to see all that happen in sort of a short span, but just this sport in general, I mean, it's always ever evolving. I mean, if you look at, what the sport was 5 years ago to what it is now, I mean, it's completely different. What are some changes that you think you've seen over your career? How do you think the sport has evolved and changed from when you first started to where it's at right now?
Yeah. Um, Probably just the different look in the physiques. When I very, very first started out, I remember looking at the figure competitors because I started out as a figure competitor. I'm a women's physique competitor now. Um, but the women's figure competitors' physiques look totally different today than they did, man, 10 years ago. Just look really, really different. So I've seen that. I've seen the hardness, the definition, the striations become um, more detailed in those bodies. Not so much at the amateur level, but definitely at the pro level. Yeah. Um, One of the things I think is interesting, and I don't know if this is really the same thing, but I think it's interesting watching bodybuilding on social media, because you just get all kinds of crazies, And I try to remind myself to stick with what works for me. I would call myself a traditionalist. I mean, I'm happy to open up the Arnold Schwarzenegger book and look through his Bible. I mean, I don't know if there's anything different you really need to do than go in and do some lat pulls and some leg presses and do 4 or 5 sets and get in your reps and eat healthy. I mean, I see some people that are just doing crazy things online, and I'm thinking, if you don't know anything about bodybuilding, if you don't know anything about the sport, this is not good information. This is not information that's going to help, a young bodybuilder come up into this world. So I like the traditional methods of bodybuilding. I would call myself a traditionalist.
I mean, yeah, there's a reason why they're traditional is because they've worked for so long. It's like I don't understand. Yeah, and I see some of those, weird posts too on social media, people doing these weird exercises, and it's like, well, if you survive that, I might be impressed and stuff like that. But I'll check in on that person in a year and see how they are, because like there are some of them where I'm just like, how are you willingly like doing that? So yeah, that is a
Yeah.
whole area
Well,
of the sport.
in 2017, and we probably talked about this in our other podcast, but in 2017, I had 2 shoulder surgeries. And so ever since then, I think I've become a smarter bodybuilder, just really, really listening to my body. This last year, um, we had the blessing of being able to build a pretty nice gym in our home. And so I go to the gym every once in a while and I stay home and work out in my home most of the time. And I can do almost everything in my gym. It's a pretty nice gym. Um, I have found that when I'm in my home gym, it's been very interesting to just really pay attention to what my body is doing and how I'm feeling that exercise and whether that feels right or if I need to change my posture. And when I'm in a space like my home gym, it's nice because there's just not a lot of distractions. And so I can take the time to be able to do that. And I've had less injury in the last year and a half. I mean, I do a lot of other preventive things to help myself, because I am in my 50s, but I'm really careful and listen to my body. And I just think that's really, really important. Whether you're 50 or whether you're 16, you really should be listening to your body.
Again, the benefits of working out. She has to remind me that she's 50, because I'd be like, oh, is she like in her 30s or late 30s, early 40s? I don't know, but I mean, as someone who's never had surgery, knock on wood,
Yeah.
what is it like sort of rehabbing that? Like, did you have to do modifications even to this day for your shoulders? Because like like I said, luckily I haven't had any surgery, so it's always fascinating to me like how people rehab things and how the body recovers and responds.
Yeah. I've never been more scared in my whole entire life. And not because of anything the doctors were telling me, but because of crazies outside, just like, oh, I see you had shoulder surgery, you're never going to come back from that. I would have people come and tell me that from the gym. And then I would have other people in the gym who had been through that, and they would come up to me and say, just keep on going, just rehab, take care of yourself, you're going to be okay. And I really appreciated those messages a lot. What I did is I listened to my doctors. I did physical therapy 100% of anything they asked me to do. I did it. I was consistent with it. I took care of myself. I did not jump in and lift heavy, crazy weights when I wasn't supposed to. I took my time. It was really hard. It was the longest because I had two surgeries. It was the longest year and a half of my life. Um, I think taking the time to heal and heal properly is everything. But I don't have to do any modifications, but I do stretch regularly, and I see a massage therapist regularly. I see a chiropractor regularly. I get massages. I do hot sauna. Like I do a lot of stuff to anything I can to prevent injury and to take care of myself. So it's really, really important to me.
I'm not gonna lie, you said hot sauna and my back felt like 1% better just from hearing the word,
You should go,
massage and hot
Ryan.
sauna. Oh, I should too. I honestly I don't think I've ever gotten a professional massage in my life. So that's something that I should. How often do you get yours? Because I know some bodybuilders like it's religious for them.
Yeah. I get one once a month, and then I do my massage stretch therapy every 2 weeks. So I see somebody because I have a tendency to get really tight in my neck, and it feeds pain down into my shoulders. So he just works on my neck and my shoulders every 2 weeks. We just stretch them out, and just make sure that I'm all aligned, and you know and I'm feeling good, and that there's no pain. And if there's pain, we work on that to get rid of that. And so I'm pretty religious about that because I'm really serious about keeping myself from injury. I want to do this for as long as I can.
I mean, as long as it's not one of those videos I've seen where they're just basically like ripping these people apart, basically, and just making
No.
them cry and just doing like the stuff and just like really like stretching things out, and then you look at the people and they look like they just got the crap beat out of them afterwards because they're all like they're all purple and stuff, but then they feel fine the next day, and I'm like, first of all, how does that work? And second of all, yeah, that is definitely interesting part, but
I've had some massages where it's been pretty deep, and it doesn't feel real great during, but I have felt better after. Um, So yeah, I mean, I think some deep tissue massaging really is, it doesn't feel awesome when it's happening, but I don't think you should be black and blue afterwards. I don't think it should be anything like that.
I remember when I first had you on, you talked about your journey into becoming a bodybuilder and first working out, and I just find it so fascinating how much the body can change and how much people can, make these changes. Do you ever look back now at what you were before then and look at it now and just have a hard time comprehending how that's possible? Because I've had some guests on, they've lost like hundreds of pounds and they look at it, and I've, as someone who has luckily, stayed somewhat slim their entire life, I've never really had to deal with that.
Yeah.
Knock on wood again. But have you ever had those moments where you're just like, I can't believe what I've accomplished?
So it's so interesting that you asked me that because this morning, right before I went down to the gym, I happened upon a Instagram post that bodybuilding.com had made today. And it was actually a transformation story of a gentleman who I think had lost, oh gosh, I want to say he lost over 100 pounds, maybe. And so on this video, we got to see him like move through that journey. And when I was watching that, I got a little bit jealous because I was like, oh man, I so wish there was a video of me going from a 200-pound woman to losing that weight and then transforming into a bodybuilding competitor, because to be able to see that in one shot was really cool. That video that they had was so, so cool. But the cool thing about it, Ryan, is that for just a second, I had this remembrance. It's funny how we forget. because now I'm like, oh, I've got to be so good for the stage. I've got to get my glutes up. I've got to get my back wide, right? And I have
And your
forgotten.
old version would be like, "What are glutes?"
I know, like 10 years ago, this girl would have not even imagined that what I would be doing would be possible. And that's what blows my mind is that I want people to say, what is it that I want? And what would my life look like if I could actually attain that? And the truth is that most of us can attain what we want. It's just all about that daily work, that daily grind, right? But it was really cool for just a minute to think back on this girl who would never, ever even want to go to a neighborhood pool to put a swimming suit on. Never, right? With her kids to now getting on a stage. And listen, for me, it's not about putting the swimsuit on or whatever. For me, it's about demonstrating the work that I've done in the gym. It is about the muscle because I've worked hard for that. I have worked hard for that. And I believe it's a beautiful thing, right? But I just think it's so amazing. We should all look back on our lives and go, wow, look what I've, come from, because those are really good reminders to remember where we've come from. Because sometimes we lose sight of that because we're so focused on getting the next thing, right? We want that next thing. And that's good. I want the next thing, but it's important to go back and go, holy crap, look what I've done, right?
One of my favorite things are those people that they take a photo of themselves every single day in like the same position, and then they do it like over a couple of years, and then you just see how they change just a little bit, maybe like every couple of weeks, and then yeah, those are some of my favorite things.
I know.
I should have done one when I started growing this beard, then just do like every single day and just see how far it grows. People need to do more of that type of stuff. I'm gonna be honest, everyone. This is the last podcast that I do with this beard because it is too dang hot outside to have a beard this long on. So it is it
That's
was good. It was time to go. It would help me stash some protein. I'd always find like a little tiny bit of chicken in it. At the next day after eating some chicken. So hey, I'd have some left over. But yeah, it is definitely time to pass it up. But I mean, also just this life in general. I mean, we've talked about plenty of times, but just the mentality of this sport that you need to have to compete. Where do you think that comes from for you? Because, like I said, plenty of times on this podcast, multiple times actually. I mean, there are days when you're not going to feel like working out. There are days when you're just like, I can't do this. And then the one thing that separates bodybuilders from the general public is that the general public will find an excuse to not go to the gym, while bodybuilders will, kicking and screaming, they'll still go to the gym and still get it done. Where do you think that drive comes from for you?
um yeah, that's such an interesting question. I'm going to be absolutely honest with you, and I know this is going to sound really weird, but it's not even been 10 years. I think it's more been like 12 years now that I have been doing this. I might have had 1 or 2 days where I didn't want to go to the gym. I know that's so
I'll
weird.
swap mentalities with you any day then.
I don't know if that makes me crazy or I don't know. I mean, Ryan, I love working out. I mean, it's my thing. I mean, I love it. There's plenty of days where I'm like, I'm going to die. I'm literally going to die. Like, the starvation is hard, man. It's hard. And when you start to get really tired and you're in the gym trying to do legs and you're giving it all you've got, I mean, it's tough physically and mentally. So I'm going to tell you a little secret. This is weird to say that like on a podcast, but I competed at the beginning of this year. I did okay, but for the very first time, I was not mentally focused. In fact, I had the worst show mentally than I ever have. And so I sat down with my coach and we came up with a game plan. And I actually hired a performance coach. So somebody that is helping me figure out how to have skills so that if I get in a place again where I feel like I'm just like not mentally focused, I can help myself because I could not help myself. Like I was like, is the show over? Is it time to eat a cheeseburger? Like I was done. I did not want to be there. Um, I had let some outside influences get into my head, and I felt like I was being judged when I probably wasn't, but that's how I felt. And it was messing with my brain. And I've thought about that a lot. And I've thought, and maybe social media does this to us. I don't know. But I think that if you're worried about outside influences, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. I don't do this for anyone else. I don't do this for my husband, for my children, for my parents, not even for my coach. This is for
If you
me.
told me you did this for your parents, I'd be like, okay, that is a weird thing. I'm doing this for you, mom and dad.
But you know what?
No, no,
But
oh, exactly. No, I was just making
but
a joke there, but
sometimes
exactly, yeah,
we do things for
yeah.
other people. Like we're trying to, show people that we're worthy, right? Or show people that we're like so awesome, right? And you can't do that. You will lose every time. And so I've had to really like become very internally aware of why I'm doing what I'm doing and start to really focus in on my journey and why I'm doing this, and that it's not for anybody else. It's not for anybody else at all. And it doesn't matter what Kevin and Karen think because it's not for them, it's for me. So mentally, this sport takes everything out of you that you've got. Especially if you're going to compete, because when you're hungry and you're tired, you have to really say, I am going to keep checking off the boxes so I can get to where I want to be. And you just have to take it a day at a time, sometimes an hour at a time until you get through the day.
That's one thing, especially on days when I don't get that much sleep, like last night kind of was with my back and everything. Yeah, you do kind of just have to take it, hour by hour and just say, you know what, hey, this is what I'm gonna do from 1 to 2, and this is what I'm gonna do, and then slowly you realize, oh my god, it's already 4 or 5 o'clock, so
Yeah.
I can go to bed in 4 or 5 hours. So there's that. But I mean, this is a question that I've asked you, every single podcast, but I think it gets different as we've gone on. You are gonna get those reactions being a 50-year-old, that the way that you look. How do you deal with that? Because like even going to my first bodybuilding show a couple weeks ago, like it was like many celebrities where like so many people's attention are drawn to stuff that is not really that they don't see very often. And for me, that was like when I was in college and I was a lot bigger, it was something that I didn't really think of that much because there are so many other bigger guys like in the gyms and at bars that I go to. But how do you deal with that extra added attention that you get just based on the way that you look? Because I know some people, they do struggle with it, and other people, like, they just don't even know it exists. And then there's other ones that are just like, it's kind of a mixture.
Yeah. Um, I like some parts of it, and other parts I'm a little weary about.
I know exactly
Uh,
what you're talking about.
I, you know, it's interesting too being a female. Um, when I was very close to getting onto the stage at my last show, I came out of a store and I was walking across the parking lot to get to my car, and I have a beautiful new car that I park very far away. I don't want anybody to nick my doors. And so I was walking out, and this person in this big truck, a man, kind of cut me off and started to have a conversation with me because he noticed that I was a bodybuilder. And my female brain is like, okay, are we cool? Like, I'm in the middle of a parking lot. Like, there's just so many, you hear scary stories, right? You hear scary stories. He turned out to be a nice guy. I tried to be careful, close enough to my car, not too close to his truck, to have a conversation with him. And I appreciated he was a gentleman, and I appreciated his respect for bodybuilding. But as a female, sometimes it's scary to be in those situations. I've also had people that I don't know that have just come up to me and like grabbed my arms and wanted to
Yeah,
touch.
people don't do that. I mean, I was at a bodybuilding show and I had no urge whatsoever. So it's like you don't.
Yeah, it
What
can
what do
be
you
a
think is
little,
what do you think is
it's
going to
a
happen with that?
little,
Do you think they're going to be like, "Oh my god, I've always wanted someone to feel my arms"? Or what do you think the response is going to be? Like that's like going up and punching a kid. Like what do you think is going to happen? So
the other thing that I've had happen, which I think is weird, is that big guys want to punch you in the arm. I'm like, what?
that happened to me too. Yep.
I'm like, whoa, that is just so weird. Like, I know I have muscle on my body and I look strong, but I'm still a female. Like, I still want to be treated like a lady. I will try to act like a lady, but please don't punch me in the arm. I mean, like, I don't know. It's just, it's kind of interesting. I will tell you, I think 90% of the time, I've only run across very kind, very nice people who just want to know why I look the way I do and what I do in the gym. My favorite question is, what exercise do you do to get those biceps? I'm like, oh, I don't really know how to answer that question. Everything, all the exercises.
Well, you answered because I was just going to ask. I was like, "How do you get guns like that?" Because at 50 years old, that's just absolutely ridiculous. So
But people are just usually really nice and really kind. And I appreciate that, especially when I'm getting ready for a show, because your brain goes, okay, I guess I look like I should belong on a stage. So that's a good sign, right? That people want to talk to you. And I love bodybuilding. So if you want to talk to me about bodybuilding, I'll talk about it all day. So I for the most part I appreciate it. But yeah, I've the only time that's been a little scary is when people have come up and wanted to grab my arms or grab me. That's a little unnerving. So
I honestly, like I've said before, I've never understood that. It's like if you do have an urge to grab an arm, which I again don't get, but like just go up and ask at least. At least do that. I mean, if you do that 100 times, you might get a couple of people saying yes. So hey, there's it's just like going out to bars. If you ask women, hey, can I buy you a drink? You'll get some rejections, you'll get some people saying yes, but hey, it's I just don't. I look at that and I just lose a little bit of faith in humanity. But then I meet other people that are kind and respectful, and I was like, okay, we might have a chance. We might have a chance as a species. Yeah.
for the most part, I've only run across really kind people and really awesome people. So yeah.
And I mean, I got to get a few questions before we wrap things up about you becoming now a train or helping out others in their fitness journey.
Yeah.
What is the most rewarding part for you? Because there's so much I think if I were to do that I would feel rewarded by. But then there's also the things of like you got to become a therapist basically. So you got to go to school basically and get your therapy. I mean, you become so into it with people. But what is the one thing that you think you probably take away the most from helping people accomplish their goals?
So one of the things that I'm so grateful for is the opportunity that I had to change my life, to make a change, and that I was able to do it in such a way that that change lasted. And so my goal is to help people make lasting change, not change for 6 months, not change for, an 8 week, trip to the Jamaica, but like change for your whole life so that you never want to go back to an unhealthy state. And that's hard. That's not an easy thing to do, but it's absolutely possible. And so, what I try to do with how I help people is I actually, every week, I sit down with my clients through Skype or through Zoom, and we talk about the whys a lot. What I realized that the reason that I was eating unhealthy and not taking care of myself wasn't necessarily because I wanted to eat all the cookies. It was because of something else that was happening in my head. It was, other habits or other thoughts that I had about my self worth, about my confidence, about addiction or whatever. And as soon as I really focused in on those, then suddenly the Oreo cookies were not as important to me as a healthy lifestyle. So, what I enjoy most of all is watching people make those changes in their brains, not just their bodies, but that change in their brain where they're like, I really want to have a healthy lifestyle. I really want this for a lifetime and not just for a little while. So, for me, it's bigger than the bikini body. It's like, how do I want to live my whole life? How do I want to feel in my skin for the rest of my life? And when I think that's a really awesome place to be because, as we get older, we want to have a long and beautiful, healthy life. So that's the goal.
Without giving away, all of your secrets, what is one thing that you like to try to tell people to keep that, going instead of doing just like that 6 month weight loss where then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I lost all this weight, I can eat again. And then they gain it all back, which is something that I see every New Year's in the
Yeah.
gym.
Yeah.
What's one thing of advice that you like to try to give people just so that they're able to keep it going instead of just being that overwhelming majority of New Year's Eve people that then just you see them, the next New Year's and they are exactly the same as they were or even heavier than they were the year before?
Yeah. So, one of the things that I do with my clients is I teach them what I call exit strategies. An exit strategy is something that you do when you get in a situation where you feel like you're going to go back to old habits. And this is not something that we do one day and then you can do it for the rest of your life. This is something that we practice together a lot. So, this is a very simple example, but I have clients that will, if they feel like they're going to be in a situation where they're just going to eat the whole cheesecake, like call it a night, I'll say, hey, listen, can you just Marco Polo me before you do that? Give them an exit strategy. Can you go for a walk just for 10 minutes? And when you get back, if you still want that, then have a little peace. Can you call your mom? One of the things that I have done that has made a huge difference is and I know a lot of people talk about this, but I have a vision board and I've had a vision board since like 12 years ago. And it's changed a lot, Ryan. Like every time I compete, I have a different vision board. But for me, if I can see that vision board, and right now my vision board is in my gym, and when I go to work out and I see that vision board, it like feeds me, it fuels me to visually see that. So some of my clients, they have their vision boards on their phone. It's like the wallpaper on their phone. I have clients that put that vision board like in the pantry. It's right next to the chips, right? And when they walk in there, they see that vision board and it reminds them very quickly of what they want. Here's the thing, you can't stop doing that. You can't lose 50 pounds and say, I guess I don't need this vision board anymore. I guess I don't need to use Marco Polo. I guess I don't need to track my food anymore. Here's the real secret. The real secret is that you have to keep doing that. You have to keep having vision boards. You have to track your food. You can't stop. You have to do the things that helped you get there. Those things will help you stay there. It doesn't mean that you have to diet for your whole life. It just means that you do have to watch your food your whole life. You do. You have to know what you're doing. You have to be aware. You have to be knowledgeable about what you're doing. But most importantly, don't throw out all the things that have been helping you be successful. Just keep using them, keep doing them.
I fall into that category myself, and I'm trying to change where I've always said if I compete in bodybuilding, I would do one show and I'd be like, okay, I did it. Let's go. Let's do that. That used to be my thing now. So, but like even doing this podcast, there have been times where it's like, oh, I reached a certain number of podcasts. Like I can stop
Yeah,
now. But then this has really helped me just keep going more and more and more and finally just like still having more goals where it's like, oh, I did 500 podcasts. Now I can go for 600. Then I'll go for 700. Just
yeah,
slowly just doing that type of stuff. So it's really helped with that too. Cause I used to be, other than sports, I used to be that one guy where it's like, oh, if I did one thing once, I'd be like, oh, well, that's my bucket list. Then I got it off. Then so just
okay,
go.
so Ryan, you just said something that is so, so smart. So, like, if you accomplish a goal, then the next thing you should do is have another goal, right? So, if back in the day, 12 years ago, if I would have just said, okay, I want to lose 70 pounds, and then said, I did it, we're done. But what I did was, okay, now let's put some muscle on my body. Okay, now let's compete. Okay, now let's compete again. Okay, let's get better and compete again, right? So you've always got a goal that's moving you forward in the right direction. So you said it, don't stop making goals. Don't stop. Continue to have what's your next goal? What's the next thing? Let's do it. Don't stop.
even though there are moments where I tell myself, like, why did I make another goal? Why did I do that to myself? But then I'm like, hey, it's doing something. But hey, yeah, you gotta have that mindset because yeah, that's the big difference between a lot of people that a lot of people just have that one goal and then they give up. But then I've met so many people. It's usually the more successful people in life are the ones that like, yeah, I accomplished this. Now onto this goal and now onto that goal. Instead of just saying like, I did what I came to do. Now I can. Now again, if I win the lottery, that's a completely different story. But that's just a little different there. But I mean, this is a question that I literally just came up with like 30 podcasts ago. It shows how great of a host I am that it took me this long to finally realize to ask this question because I think this in my head at least once every single health and fitness or bodybuilding guest that I have on. It's just human nature. I say to myself, why do these people do this to themselves? Why do they put themselves through this? I hear all these prep brain stories. I hear all these other stories and like, especially when you're talking about those last days when you're just dead,
Yeah.
basically. And I just say to myself, I was like, why do they do this to themselves? It's like, but obviously
Yeah.
I know why because I've talked to so many of them. But still, it's just the human nature in me that's just like, why do they suffer, do this so much? And I bet you still have some people saying that to you all the time. What is your why that you like to respond to that?
Um, there's something really beautiful for me about doing something that's really hard and accomplishing it. And I don't know if that makes sense, but I like to lean into that hard because I'm really interested in what I can do. The beautiful thing about bodybuilding, it's like you go to the gym and you work your ass off and you try to put all this muscle on your body and you eat and you build and you eat and you build. And then you have this day where you go, okay, what's underneath that? What does it look like when it's all stripped down? When we can see all of those beautiful muscles, like all the work that, what does that look like? What could I look like? And so to me, it's like sculpting. It's like you've got this piece of clay and now you get to fine tune it and to see everything that you've built underneath it. And so when you start to cut and shred and you start to see all this definition and you see all the beautiful striations, I'm like, oh my gosh, the human body is just like so beautiful. It's so amazing. And then because I grew up being a singer and a dancer and a performer, like to be able to now take that to the stage with some music, I don't know. It just seems like a perfect world for me. I loved having this goal and then leaning into the hard and then seeing the outcome at the end, and knowing that you did everything in your power to make that happen. I just think it's so exciting.
There's a famous quote that I totally forgot what it is, and I totally forgot who even said it, but it goes to the effect of like, it's not worth doing if it's not hard. It's something like that. I'm not gonna, I'll look it up and I'll probably have it displayed down below when I'm talking about it. But
Yeah.
there's a famous one, and I totally, agree with that as well. And then again, another question that I've asked you the other two times that you've had on, but this might have changed over time. If someone were to walk up to you and say, Keleen, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Oh gosh. Mm. Okay, so I don't know if this would make sense, but I started noticing like either in the gym or sometimes on social media, times where I don't know, professionals or people that look really, really good um, are not always respectful to the beginner. And this is something that's really important to me because I remember being the beginner, like not knowing anything about the sport, not feeling like I belonged in the gym, didn't know anything about the gym and was embarrassed to be there or embarrassed to do something wrong. And I've been around some people that are like, what is that guy doing? Or what is that girl doing? And I kind of want to be like, yo, like, since we know stuff, we should be helpful. We should offer, our knowledge. We should be kind. We should be patient. And I think not only does it make the bodybuilding world better, but it makes the world better when we offer that patience and that service to our fellow brothers and sisters, because not everybody has the knowledge or experience that we have being in the gym, and we need to give everybody grace to learn and the time to become better. Now I'm not saying that I see that everywhere, because I don't. I see beautiful people in the bodybuilding world doing that. But one of the things I'm trying to do with my coaching is to teach no intimidation. Like, let's not be intimidated. Let's walk into places that we believe
Well,
we
I'm not
should.
gonna lie. If I saw you in the gym, I'd be a little intimidated at first. If I hadn't known you, I'd be like, "What is
But
that?
Ryan,
What is that jacked woman doing here?" Yeah,
but hopefully I'd be like, hey,
yeah,
Ryan,
yeah,
come over. Let's lift together,
yeah.
right? Like, let's help each other. Like, let's share knowledge and let's support each other. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely, and that applies to everything in life too. Like I've always said, you never know what people are going through. You never know what's going on.
Yeah.
One compliment really can change someone. I mean, you never
So,
know how. Yeah.
Ryan, that is so true. That is the best thing that you said today, because that is really, really true. It can change a person's whole day by something little that you said. It's so true. So true.
I'm not gonna pat myself on the back of this, but I will give one example. I was out driving. This is like probably like 4 or 5 years ago, and I saw a guy he was pretty overweight and he was running, and he was running the same way I was driving, and it was like a slower like intersection. So I followed.
Yeah.
I was basically like following him for like 30 seconds, and then I saw him. He was like just about to collapse, and he was almost like crying. And then I rolled my window down and I said, "Hey man, keep it up. You can do this." And then he just looked at me. He said, "Thank you. I really really needed this. It's really provided me a thing." And then he gathered himself together and still like slowly kind of went on. But I mean, yeah, you never know how much that can really go with someone, because I've even had times in my life where just that one compliment that someone gave me just really just changed my day, and then just changed. Yeah, you never know. So anyone out there, it's like I've never got like what you talked about, like where like some of those like very high up health and fitness people sort of don't treat, like you said, they don't treat the people that are beginners and stuff. It's like, why would you ever make fun of someone for trying to better themselves? Like, I don't care if they what they look like. If they're in the gym, they're trying. They're at least trying. So I never got that, but I've seen very rare instances of that myself. So I know what you're talking about. But yeah,
Yeah.
that is one thing
Yeah.
that drives me absolutely crazy as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Absolutely.
always a good idea to be kind.
Yeah, absolutely. And you never, I am honestly just waiting on that person that I just say hello and how you doing to, and they're like, "Hey man, you want $1 million?" And I'll just be like, I'm waiting patiently for that to happen, but it's not happening. Or the guy just goes, "Hey man, do you want this car?" And then he just flips me like his Mercedes. Yeah, but it hasn't happened yet, everyone. But I'm still, one of these days, maybe it might happen. I'm waiting, but yeah, yeah. But again, yeah, it's like, why would you? Yeah, I luckily my parents instilled the golden rule into me, so I got that drilled into my brain, so
Good.
that works. But now,
That's
I
good.
mean, I am gonna have you on earlier than 2 more years, because I don't want to wait another 2 years to talk to you. So when
Oh,
we have you
good.
on a year from now, where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding journey? Where would you like to be at just in your overall life? What are some goals you'd like to have achieved when we have you on next?
Oh gosh, I get so scared to say these things out loud.
Hey, you got to put it in the air. Then it's like
I
then it
know.
becomes a thing. Yeah, you have vision boards, for God's sake.
I know. I want to be healthy. I want to be healthy, and
Honestly, though, I gotta interrupt you, but thank you for saying that, because so many people like they prioritize other things over their health, especially in this sport. So you saying that actually means a lot. Yeah.
yeah. And I hope to still be bodybuilding. Every year I have this question. It's like, should I still compete? Am I like over the hill? Should I stop doing this? I said to my coach a couple of weeks ago, I said, I just feel still so passionate about this. And I still have a very determined mind. Um, I'm not scared of the work. I work really hard. I check all the boxes. Um, so I feel like if I'm still in that place and I'm still in that space, then I should just do what I want to do, no matter if I get my pro card or not. It would be great. It'd be so fun, but it's not a deal breaker for me, Ryan. It's not. Um, it would be really great, and I'll probably do this for another couple years, and then I'll just want to be hanging out at the gym until I'm 80. You know what I mean? Or in my gym. But the other thing that I really hope that I can continue to do, because I've had a lot of joy from it, is just help others. I'm really interested in doing that. Um, yeah, I mean, it's a job and I'm making money doing it, but I really like helping people. Like, it's so fun. And I'm really enjoying seeing people recognize their ability to make change, and I believe that all of us can change, and it doesn't need to be big. It can be little, and those little changes over a long period of time can make a huge difference. So I hope to be continuing to do that, and getting better at that every day as well. So
Again, I mean, Keleen, I could honestly talk to you for like 10 hours, but I don't want to waste any more of your time. But again, I cannot thank you enough for coming back on and, sharing your journey. You were one of my first health and fitness guests, so it's always nice to catch up with you. And I cannot wait to see.
nice to chat with you too,
Yeah.
Ryan.
Yeah. And
Thank you.
absolutely. And I cannot wait to see what the future holds for you. Lastly, anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
Oh gosh. Well, I would not be able to do this if it wasn't, first of all, for my family. Like, I have an amazing family, and I know that not everybody has amazing families, but you can create good families if you can find good friends. I have good friends that are like family, and everybody needs to have at least one or two people in their life that get them. And I have that, and so I'm very thankful for that. I also have an amazing coach right now. His name is Tim Runyon, and he's such a great coach because he knows what I need to do as an athlete, but he respects me as a human, and he treats me with kindness, knows how to push me, treats me with kindness and respect, and believes that the body and the brain are all connected. And so he's very careful about making sure that both of those things are working together, because as you said at the beginning of this podcast, that it's a very mental sport. And so this and this they need to be aligned. They really do need to be aligned if you're going to do this sport. So yeah, I'm thankful for all those good people in my life.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, again, everyone go and check out Keleen's Instagram. I'll leave a link down below. Buyer beware. You will get inspired to get off that couch and stop eating all those Twinkies and get in shape. And I mean, I mean, yeah, I've always said I always prefer the older guests because it's just so inspiring to talk to you and just to see what you've been able to do, especially with your journey. And it is, again, I will admit that you're one of probably about the dozen guests when I have those days where I'm feeling down. I was like, look at these people. And no offense, but like some of them are twice my age and they're doing it and they're killing it better than me. So it's like, what am I doing right now? So that always gives me the extra added push. So yeah, you are definitely one of those that I look up to. But again, thank you so much for coming back on. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
you're welcome.
All right,
Thank
everyone.
you.
This is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.